Hey everyone, Aaron Rift here. Welcome to a special edition of NoDQ Live. I decided to go ahead and do this live video on Facebook coming off of the news that Seth Rollins has re-injured his knee. At this point, it's believed to have been a legitimate injury. We're still waiting for more details. He's currently being checked out. He just posted something on Twitter. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully we'll have more updates regarding the injury. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com. Of course, this is an ongoing breaking news story. But before I talk more about Seth Rollins and the injury, let's talk about SmackDown. We now have 4 matches set for the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. Kyle says, hi Aaron, how's it going, Interstate Kyle? You guys can leave your comments, your thoughts on the Seth Rollins injury. For Elimination Chamber, we have, of course, the WWE title match. John Cena defending the WWE title inside the Elimination Chamber. Dean Ambrose is in it. AJ Styles, Baron Corbin, Bray Wyatt, The Miz. Should be a very strong match with those 6 guys. The winner, of course, becoming WWE Champion and going on to WrestleMania to face Randy Orton. At this point, the obvious choice to win it is Bray Wyatt, but I will do my official predictions next week with David Payne and hopefully Jeff Meacham. We'll see how that goes. Also, we have a tag team title turmoil match set up. American Alpha wanted a challenge, and they got it. They will be facing pretty much the entire tag team roster on SmackDown, from the Vaudevillains to the Ascension to Breezango and the rest of the teams, the Usos. We have 2 women's matches set up for the pay-per-view. We have Nikki Bella versus Natalya. So that feud will finally have its climax, hopefully at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. We also have Naomi going for the women's title, challenging Alexa Bliss. And I'm assuming WWE is going to add another match, possibly Dolph Ziggler versus Apollo Crews. Maybe it'll be the pre-show match, and then 1 or 2 other matches. I'm thinking the Elimination Chamber match will go close to an hour, so that will take up a good chunk of the pay-per-view. Leonard asks, do you think the Usos should win the tag team titles? No. I would like to see American Alpha retain and then go on to face the Revival at WrestleMania. That's what I would like to see. I hope American Alpha just dominates that match and just destroys all those tag teams. So Jimmy asks, who will Triple H face at WrestleMania 33? That's the big question. Right now, we still don't know how severe the Seth Rollins injury is, and this is an ongoing breaking story. Who knows how severe the injury is, but in the worst case scenario, if Seth Rollins is out, WWE is in a tough spot because they have invested a lot of television time into this match. And Christopher asks, Joe versus Triple H at WrestleMania 33. That I do not see happening. I mean, we saw the tweet where Samoa Joe is bragging about injuring Seth Rollins, and that's making people think that this is a work. But the fact is, if it was a work, Joe would have went after Seth Rollins' knee on Raw. He would have specifically attacked the knee so WWE could make a storyline out of it. Of course, whether it's legitimate or not, WWE is going to use this to build up Joe now, and that's why Joe's going on Twitter and making a big deal out of injuring Rollins. But I do not see Joe facing Triple H. I mean, that would make no sense whatsoever. I've seen a few ideas batted around, maybe Triple H and Shane McMahon, or some sort of inter-promotional match, Raw versus SmackDown. I mean, there's a lot of different ways it could go. Kyle asks, is Nikki Bella retiring after WrestleMania 33? I've heard nothing about that. I would think that Nikki would try to stick around as long as possible. I mean, after all that rehab and spending all that time recovering from injury, you would think that she would be sticking around as long as she possibly can. Who is James Ellsworth going to fight at WrestleMania? I would think that Ellsworth is probably going to be in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. That's my guess, at least. When will we see Orton break from Bray? I would assume after the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. My feeling is that Bray is going to win, and then that will set up Orton versus Bray Wyatt, which is a match I was expecting for WrestleMania, since this whole storyline with Randy Orton joining the Wyatts. I mean, the obvious conclusion would be that eventually Orton would break away from Bray Wyatt and they would have their big final encounter at WrestleMania. I would think that Triple H would still have a WrestleMania match. Maybe not. I mean, it depends on what they're able to come up with. But apparently WWE's looking into a new possible opponent for Triple H. I'm not sure who. Who would you guys like to see Triple H face? If this thing with Seth Rollins falls apart, who would be the best option for Triple H? What do you guys think? Go ahead and leave your comments, and I will read off some of them. Callum Jack asks about Joe's debut. I thought it was awesome, and I talked about it on the other NoDQ Live. I thought it was a great way to debut Joe. Joe versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. I mean, that was looking unlikely before, and now, I mean, it's looking even more unlikely, although all the heat's going to be on Samoa Joe now. I mean, I think coming out of this, whether it's legitimate or not, or if Seth Rollins is not that seriously hurt, you know, all this heat's going to be on Joe now, and this is going to be arguably hotter than Rollins versus Triple H. I mean, I've talked about how I felt that even though WWE has spent a lot of time building up Seth Rollins and Triple H, I mean, the fact that Triple H was gone for so long and not on TV, I felt the thing really cooled off. And I mean, it started to pick up, obviously, at the NXT TakeOver show, but I don't know. I mean, I wasn't really feeling the storyline. So we'll see what happens with that. Everything's very much up in the air right now. Stay tuned to NoDQ, of course, for the very latest. We got an update regarding Samoa Joe's comments and the comments from Seth Rollins. But at this point, everything seems to be indicating that this is a legitimate injury and not a storyline. It's not a work. Triple H should face Kurt Angle. Well, that would be an awesome match, but I doubt we're going to see Triple H versus Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle even wrestling at WrestleMania, I think, is a big long shot at this point. Mike Baumert says, hey, bro, how's it going, Mike? Good to talk to you again. Triple H versus Rift Aronson. Never say never, as they say in the wrestling business. What will they do with Dean Ambrose at WrestleMania? I'm thinking it's going to be Dean Ambrose versus The Miz. I mean, that's my gut feeling. That seems to be the logical direction. Ambrose defending the IC title against The Miz, the former champion. I mean, that's what I would go with, at least. Triple H versus The Rock. I think if The Rock was available, WWE would have already had him show up. I mean, I'm pretty sure The Rock is busy and he's not going to compete at WrestleMania. I mean, that's something The Rock would need several months to plan out in advance and free up his schedule and all that. I mean, I'm pretty certain that that's not going to be a realistic possibility. John Cena's WrestleMania match. That's another one that is a big debate right now. Who is John Cena going to face at WrestleMania? I've heard some reports about potentially having a John Cena versus Baron Corbin match. I mean, some people might see that as a disappointment. Others may feel that that's a way for Baron Corbin to step it up to the next level and have a match of that high profile against John Cena at WrestleMania. What do you guys think? Who would you like to see John Cena face at WrestleMania? I made it clear I wanted to see Cena versus Undertaker. I'd rather see that than Undertaker versus Rollins personally. Eric Young versus Bray Wyatt. What do you think? From Chad Rico. I think once Eric Young comes to the main roster, that's a possibility, but I don't see that happening right away. But of course, it seems to make logical sense because of Eric Young's faction sanity being these crazy guys going up against the crazy Wyatts. Although, who knows what's happening with the Wyatts right now? I mean, Luke Harper is breaking off and looks like he's turning face, and maybe they're going to have Bray Wyatt versus Luke Harper. I don't know what's going to happen, but that would be interesting if Bray Wyatt maybe made a new Wyatt family or even feuded with Eric Young and somehow Bray tried to take control of Eric Young's guys. There's a lot of different things they could do with that. Not answering that question, Braden. Cody says, who should Samoa Joe face at WrestleMania and why? That's a tough one. I mean, Samoa Joe should be in a big match at WrestleMania, in my opinion. I'd love to see Joe versus Finn Balor if Balor's able to return in time. And of course, with Joe being on Raw and Balor coming back, I mean, that would be an amazing match. So I would go with that. If Balor is ready to return to compete at WrestleMania, I would do Joe versus Balor. But then again, WWE may decide to do some sort of inter-promotional match. I mean, Joe versus John Cena was another match that was rumored, and maybe WWE will have to go through with that if Seth Rollins is unable to compete. It's going to be really interesting because this will definitely be a huge monkey wrench in the whole WrestleMania card if Seth Rollins is not able to compete. Let's see some of the other comments. Thoughts on the invasion on Raw of Samoa Joe? Again, I thought it was an awesome segment. I love Joe being put right into the main event picture and being involved in the storyline with Seth Rollins and Triple H. I just hope he looks strong when the whole thing is said and done. But we may not even get the Joe Rollins match at this point if Rollins is going to miss WrestleMania. Let's see some of your comments here. Let me know what you guys think. Who would you like to see Triple H face at WrestleMania? That was my question. I still haven't seen any comments regarding that. Will Lesnar job to Goldberg again? That I'm not expecting. I would be shocked beyond shocked if Goldberg beats Lesnar again at WrestleMania. That I do not see happening. Richard says Rude in NXT is a slap in the face. AJ Styles said that all the guys coming into WWE should go through NXT so they can learn to work the WWE style. And, I think it's good for these guys to go through NXT first and just get that experience and get used to working in WWE. So when they debut on the main roster, it's not awkward or weird or anything. They can come in and they know exactly what to do. When you look at Joe, he knew everything on what to do when he came out there and how to do the big main event angle. I mean, I think that Joe being in NXT definitely helped him get ready for the main roster. And I think all these guys have benefited from being in NXT. With AJ, you notice when he first came in, it was a little weird. And it took AJ a couple of months to really find his place in WWE and really adapt and fit in. And, in recent months, his promos have been amazing. He's really improved a lot in various ways, not just, in the ring, AJ's always been one of the best in the business, but, he's really took it to a whole new level, not just in the ring, but his mannerisms and the way he acts when he comes out and his promos. I mean, everything AJ does is top notch, and, he's really become one of the best in the business, but, he developed, he definitely improved, and I think there's always something to learn, no matter how much you think you've learned on the indies. When you come to WWE, it's a whole new ball game, and there's always things to learn. Triple H versus Bobby Roode. I don't see Roode being called up this soon. I mean, my guess is it'll be Roode versus Nakamura at the TakeOver show leading up to WrestleMania, and then after WrestleMania, it'll probably be Nakamura that debuts next, and then Roode will maybe debut in the summer. That's my guess at least. Goldberg versus Lesnar for the Universal title. I mean, that's what I'm expecting at this point. I mean, as much as I would like to see Kevin Owens versus Jericho for the Universal title, it's looking to me like Goldberg's going to be the champion and Lesnar is Universal Champion. So does that mean Lesnar is going to stick around past WrestleMania? The whole thing's really weird. I could see WWE's viewpoint on it, that they consider Goldberg and Lesnar the biggest match, so they want to make that for the Universal title. I mean, whatever. Roode versus Triple H. Yeah, I mean, that would be an awesome match. I could definitely see that happening sometime down the line in a couple of years. Nathan suggests Triple H versus Shane McMahon. That is something I could see as a possibility if Seth Rollins is unable to do WrestleMania. Some sort of inter-promotional match, Raw versus SmackDown. I mean, there's been all this talk about Shane having a match at WrestleMania, and, Triple H, of course, having a match at WrestleMania. So doing Triple H versus Shane and some sort of stipulation, maybe the winner gets the first draft pick. There's some different things they could do with that. Triple H versus Mick Foley. That's not going to happen. Foley's having hip surgery. That is almost 0% chance of happening. Finn Balor versus Triple H. There's a good one. I mean, if Finn Balor is ready to return for WrestleMania, you could have him step in and face Triple H. That one's a possibility. Triple H versus Cena because Triple H is jealous of Cena's record. That's interesting, but that one, I'm not sure how you even get to that. I mean, Triple H is all of a sudden going to come out and say he's upset about Cena's record. I mean, to me, that's a little weird. I'm not sure how you would even get to that point where you can do that match for WrestleMania when they're on separate brands. And that one, I think, is a little bit of a long shot. Triple H versus Vince. Highly unlikely in all likelihood. Sami Zayn versus Triple H. That one, I think, is pretty interesting, but again, I'm not sure that Triple H would do a match with Sami Zayn. I'm not sure how you would get to that point either. I mean, you have to think, how can WWE come up with some kind of logical storyline to lead into Triple H versus somebody else other than Seth Rollins? Versus Sami Zayn seems pretty weird unless Zayn comes out and insults Stephanie or something and Triple H has to come to her rescue. Triple H versus Bret Hart. Yeah, right. Roman Reigns versus Undertaker. What do you think? I'm not sure what to make of that match. Like I've said in the other videos, Roman Reigns is going to get booed out of the building. So how do you do that match without turning Reigns heel? If you turn Reigns heel, then that's great. I think that's a tremendous way to have him turn heel and have him retire The Undertaker. I mean, imagine that. Roman Reigns retiring The Undertaker. That would make him like the biggest heel for life. So if WWE wanted to go in that direction, that would be a logical thing to do. All right, guys, that'll wrap it up for this edition of NoDQ Live. Thanks for tuning in on Facebook. For those of you that watched it live, the on-demand version will be up on NoDQ's YouTube channel. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest regarding the Seth Rollins injury story, and I will see you guys next time.